Well, I should like to see the UN attempt to exercise good offices, I believe, because wherever there is any kind of fighting and open violence in the world, there's always it's always sort of a powder keg.
Guardsmen, police, and state troopers moved quickly to arrest those attacking blacks and their sympathizers. After 3 weeks of near anarchy, President Eisenhower ordered federal troops into Little Rock.
There was once an America that people called the best days, where life moved slowly. Faith in tomorrow was unshakable, and happiness was found in the simplest of things. That was the Eisenhower era, 8 short years that left behind radiant memories which still stir an entire generation today. Time has passed, and all of it has slipped into the past, leaving only stories, black and white photographs, and the longing of those who lived it. What exactly made that period one Americans still recall with both pride and nostalgia? Let us now explore 25 things that existed only under President Dwight D. Eisenhower. 1. Schools full of hope. Tuition worth dreaming of. In Eisenhower's time, the schoolhouse was a symbol of faith and the hope of changing one's life. Classrooms were crowded, desks were worn wood, windows opened to fields or little streets, but laughter always rang out inside. Teachers were respected, almost like second parents. Students listened with discipline, and parents believed education was the surest ticket to a brighter future. College tuition was only a few $100s a year, the kind of money a summer job could cover. In 1958, when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, Eisenhower signed the National Defense Education Act, pouring billions into schools and scholarships. Anyone who worked hard could set foot on campus. The hope for the future spread like the morning sun. Today, that picture has changed. College tuition can reach $40,000 to $60,000 a year, pushing millions of students into crushing debt that can take decades to pay back. Instead of excitement at the gates, many young people see education locked behind the word tuition. Teachers feel pressure from grades and performance, while students stress over loans. The simple belief, study to change your life, has been replaced by the practical fear. Will I ever be able to pay off my debt after graduation? Looking back, we realize that in Eisenhower's era, schools not only taught knowledge, they planted hope, turning ordinary children into citizens filled with dreams. Today, amid material abundance, we have lost what was most precious, the belief that knowledge could bring freedom and happiness. 2. Baby boom, the sound of children everywhere. If one sound captures the spirit of Eisenhower's America, it would be the cries, laughter, and little footsteps of children echoing across neighborhoods. The 1950s were not only the era of new highways and suburban fences, but also the time when an entire generation came into the world, so numerous and so loud it reshaped the nation itself. If one sound captures the spirit of Eisenhower's America, it would be the cries, laughter, and little footsteps of children echoing across neighborhoods. The 1950s were not only the era of new highways and suburban fences, but also the time when an entire generation came into the world, so numerous and so loud, it reshaped the nation itself. Between 1946 and 1964, nearly 76 million children were born in America, with the peak falling during Eisenhower's presidency. More than 4 million babies were born each year, an enormous number compared to the pre-war years. Large families became a familiar sight. 3, 4, even 5 kids running across the same lawn, while mothers knitted on porches and fathers tended BBQ grills in the backyard. It was possible only in that era, when war was behind, prosperity filled the air, and people believed the future would surely outshine the past. Having many children was not seen as a burden, but as proof of faith and optimism. New neighborhoods felt alive with the voices of children. Parks were never empty, and every street rang with the sound of tricycles and rubber balls bouncing in the summer sun. Today, the birth rate in America has dropped to record lows, only about 1.6 children per woman. The once lively picture of neighborhoods filled with children has faded into a dream. Playgrounds are often empty. Baby strollers feel rare in vast supermarkets, and the phrase baby boom now exists only in history books and the memories of the old. 3. Brand new interstates, the ribbon of freedom. Do you remember the first time the whole family climbed into a shiny new Chevy, rolled the windows down, the wind rushing through your hair, and in front of you a straight road stretching all the way to the horizon? In the 1950s, Americans felt that thrill for the first time as the first miles of the interstate system were paved. It was the joy of gliding on smooth asphalt, laid out like a ribbon stretched across the sky. No smog, no traffic jams, no billboards crowding the view, only an open road leading into the horizon, opening belief that freedom could now be measured in miles. The Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956 launched the building of more than 41,000 miles of interstate highways, the largest infrastructure project in American history, costing $25 billion at the time. Eisenhower, who had witnessed Europe's poor roads during World War II, knew that a vast nation could not stay connected without concrete arteries. And so, mile after mile was built, linking towns to cities, countryside to urban centers, erasing the distance between states. For ordinary people, the interstate was more than convenience. It created a new way of life. Families packed suitcases, sandwiches, and bottles of milk into the trunk of a Bel Air or Thunderbird. Kids laughing in the back seat. Parents driving straight to a national park, a beach, or a drive-in in the next town. Roads were open, no traffic, and every trip felt like an adventure. Today, highways mean traffic jams, toll booths, and crumbling pavement. Only, in the memories of those first generations, do interstates remain the symbol of a vibrant America, where pressing the gas pedal felt like opening the road to the future. 4. Simple, fresh food, flavor from the backyard garden. If the simplicity in consumption during the Eisenhower era made families happy with nothing more than a refrigerator or a TV, it showed even more clearly in daily meals. In 1955, most American families had at least a small garden where tomatoes, green beans, and cucumbers were picked straight into the kitchen. On average, a household consumed more than 40 gallons of milk a year, and dinner almost always included butter, grilled meat, and fresh vegetables. A gallon of milk at that time cost about 83 cents, a crusty white loaf just 18 cents, and a pound of lean beef a little over 50 cents. Those tiny numbers carried enormous memories. In the morning, a glass milk bottle still beaded with dew sat neatly on the doorstep. In the kitchen, Mom opened the sparkling new refrigerator and took out golden butter, cold cuts, and vegetables from the backyard. Outside, Dad lit the charcoal grill for the weekend BBQ. Children ran circles around the yard with a freshly picked red apple in hand, their laughter mingling with the smell of meat drifting on the afternoon breeze. Meals back then were not extravagant, not complicated, but filled with nourishment, trust, and the joy of togetherness. Compared with America today, the contrast is striking. A gallon of milk can cost $4 or $5, vegetables are often expensive and packed with preservatives, and meat carries constant worries about chemicals. People eat more, but they also worry more. Fast food, GMO, and processed foods crowd the table, while fresh flavors and peace of mind grow increasingly rare. It turns out all it took was a milk bottle on the porch, a backyard BBQ, and a basket of garden vegetables for a family to feel life was complete. That was rustic, pure happiness, something later generations can only rediscover through fading memories. 5. The golden age of American cars, the era of Bel Air and El Dorado. The Eisenhower years marked the glory days of American cars, when new highways stretched wide and gleaming steel ships became national icons. A 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air had a starting price of about $2,200, less than half the average American family's yearly income at the time. The Cadillac El Dorado, the most glamorous model, cost around $7,000, a high figure, but still within reach of the comfortable middle class. At that price, people did not just buy a car, they bought a dream, the freedom to cruise along freshly built interstates, the thrill of neighbors turning their heads at the shine of chrome. The Bel Air, with tail fins soaring like wings and red paint reflecting the sun, or the El Dorado, with its luxurious leather seats, gave owners the sense of mastering a new era. Fathers polished their cars on Saturday mornings. Kids sat in the back, listening to rock and roll on the radio. The whole family drove their Thunderbird to a drive-in theater. Those were the snapshots of happiness in the Eisenhower years. Today, the average new car costs more than $48,000, while incomes have not kept pace. American streets are filled with imported cars, compact and practical, but few carry the personality and glory of Made in Detroit. Legendary names like Bel Air and El Dorado now rest in museums or collectors' garages. The chrome brilliance that once lit up America's highways has become a memory, a golden memory, when cars were the proud four-wheeled symbols of a nation. 6. Sacred Sundays, the day of family togetherness. If you stepped into America of the 1950s, Sunday was not for overtime or frantic deadlines, but the day families slowed down and breathed together. In the morning, church bells rang through the suburbs, children dressed in their best, parents holding hands as they walked into polished wooden pews. When the service ended, the sky seemed wider, and peace spread through the neighborhood. By afternoon, the kitchen glowed with light. The smell of roasted chicken drifted from the new gas oven, blending with the cinnamon apple pie waiting to come out. Mashed potatoes creamy smooth, green beans bright, a simple salad with tomatoes from the backyard. At that time, with chicken around 29 cents a pound and bread just a few cents a loaf, families could set a hearty table. But the true value was not in the food, but in the joy of gathering around that polished wooden table. Children chattered about school. Fathers spoke about fixing the porch roof. Mothers smiled while pouring more fresh milk into glasses. Doors stood open. Sometimes neighbors stopped by with a pie to share. Outside, the radio played gentle swing or crooner songs, a background for the bursts of laughter filling the house. Today, that warmth has faded. Dinner tables sit empty, replaced by boxed pizza, glowing phones, and work seeping into every moment. What was once the heartbeat of family life survives only in memory, a sweet memory of roasted chicken, warm apple pie, and the embrace of togetherness that nothing else can replace. 7. Simplicity in consumption, happiness with TV and refrigerators. There was an America under Eisenhower, where happiness was not a luxury car, designer brands, or dozens of credit cards, but wrapped up in simple things like a shiny new refrigerator or a black and white TV placed neatly in the living room. In 1950, only about 9% of American families had a TV, but by the end of the decade, that number had soared to more than 85%. The familiar scene back then was the whole neighborhood gathering around a small screen, kids sitting cross-legged on the floor, adults passing around bowls of popcorn, cheering as a music show or a ball game came on. In the kitchen, the first refrigerator became a source of enormous pride. Mothers opened the door to find milk, butter, and fresh vegetables enough for a whole week, no longer worrying about daily trips to the market. A washing machine, a radio, a few simple household appliances, and the family felt like they were living in a modern paradise. That happiness came from knowing what was enough. People cherished each item, wiped the TV down weekly, kept the refrigerator manual as if it were a keepsake. There was no need to buy new every year, no urge to show off, because one single item was enough to bring a family and a community together. Today, that picture has vanished. We have hundreds of TV channels, countless gadgets, and phones replaced every year. Yet families rarely sit together. Credit cards pile up debt, homes become storage spaces, and joy feels hollow. Looking back at those old black and white photos, a child grinning beside a brand new TV, a father proudly showing off a refrigerator on the porch, we realize there was, once in America, where happiness was that simple, and it can never be fully recaptured. 8. The neighborhood dream, when doors were always open. Do you remember knocking on a neighbor's door just to borrow a pinch of salt, or carrying over a fresh baked pie to share? In the Eisenhower years, those little acts were the ties that bound entire communities together, where every block felt like one big family. Numbers from that time tell an interesting story. More than 60% of Americans in the 1950s said they visited neighbors at least once a week. You can still picture the warmth of it. Kids dashing freely from yard to yard without asking permission. Adults sitting on porch chairs, sipping coffee and chatting until late. Front doors rarely locked because trust was natural. Backyard BBQs or 4th of July gatherings turned entire neighborhoods into one big family. Porch lights glowing bright and laughter echoing everywhere. Hard to believe closeness like that was once so ordinary. Now that habit lives only in memory. Modern houses rise with tall iron fences and security cameras, doors locked tight, blue light from TVs and phones, replacing conversation on the porch. Children no longer run across lawns to play, but sit quietly with iPads in their rooms. Adults are too busy to knock on a door or share a fresh pie. We may have thousands of online friends, yet hesitate to say hello to the person living right next door. 9. Soda, fountain and jukebox, teen heaven. Can you believe there was once an America where teen paradise fit inside a tiny soda shop on the corner? No malls, no giant fast food chains, just a few shiny red stools, a polished counter, and the clink of a coin dropping into a jukebox. In an instant, the room erupted with the sounds of Buddy Holly or Chuck Berry. Milkshakes so cold, they froze your tongue. Vanilla ice cream melting sweetly, laughter ringing everywhere. This was the heaven of American teens in Eisenhower's time. In the 1950s, the soda fountain was more than a place for drinks. It was the heart of the town. Boys in leather jackets and girls in poodle skirts gathered after school, sharing hamburgers and lollipops while music played. Friendships were sealed there. First loves sparked there. It was truly the social network of the era, simple, lively, and irreplaceable. Soda shops have almost disappeared from America. You can play music on your phone and sip a latte from a paper cup at a soulless Starbucks, but you will never feel the same electric energy of a 1950s soda shop, where music, youth, and happiness all came together as one. 10. The slogan, "I like Ike." When politics made a nation smile. There was once an America where politics wasn't bitter argument, but a shared joy. In the 1950s, from campaign buttons to posters to street signs, 3 simple, friendly words appeared everywhere. I like Ike. Ike was the affectionate nickname for Dwight David Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States and former Supreme Allied Commander in Europe. The slogan lit up the elections of 1952 and 1956, not just as campaign material, but as a heartfelt expression of trust from the people. And whenever the words were spoken, faces lit up with smiles. No fancy phrasing, no complexity, just 3 words that bound millions together. In recent elections, that innocence and unity have been nearly impossible to find. And so, I like Ike remains in America's memory as proof that once politics could bring happiness to an entire nation simply by offering someone they could believe in. 11. Suburban boom, white picket fences, and the American dream. Owning a suburban home today may feel like a distant dream for many Americans, with land prices soaring and quiet neighborhoods slowly replaced by noise and crowding. But if we go back to the 1950s, under President Dwight D. Eisenhower, the idea of suburbia was more than just housing. It was a shining symbol of happiness and stability. After World War II, millions of returning veterans longed to build new lives. The GI Bill allowed them to buy homes with fixed mortgage rates of about 4%, while a booming economy fueled the belief that tomorrow would be brighter than today. Within a single decade, America saw more than 11 million new homes rise, most of them stretching across the wide-open suburbs. The Levitt towns became the most famous, sprouting up like mushrooms, where rows of nearly identical houses were built at record speed, sometimes hundreds in a week. They all looked the same: sloping roofs, wide windows, private garages, neat green lawns, and spotless white fences. Yet behind that sameness, each family breathed warmth into their home. The sound of children playing on the grass, the smell of BBQ drifting in the evening breeze, the cheerful greetings of neighbors at the porch. Only in the Eisenhower years did the suburbs truly feel like family heaven. Traffic was light, the air was clean, and children could walk or bike to school without worry. At night, the whole neighborhood glowed with lights, doors left open, adults chatting, children playing until the street lamps flickered on. It was a picture later generations can hardly imagine, a simple kind of happiness Americans once believed would last forever. Today, the suburbs still exist, but they are not the same. White fences are only decorations, quiet streets replaced by cars and hurry, and families retreat behind closed doors. Only when looking at faded black and white photos do we realize there was once an America where happiness needed no more than a small house, a white fence, and the laughter of children echoing through the golden suburban dusk. 12. Social Security and the monthly check. Imagine working your whole life, and when age or illness finally came, instead of fearing tomorrow, you received a monthly check, knowing your country still stood behind you. In the 1950s, under Eisenhower, that was no longer just a dream. He expanded Social Security, bringing millions of seniors, the disabled, and everyday workers under its protection for the first time. That small check was more than money. It was a promise that America did not abandon those who had contributed. In suburban homes, parents smiled with relief. Children carried fewer worries, and whole communities believed they lived in a fairer, more compassionate society. The memory of holding that check and feeling protected was a quiet happiness this generation struggles to grasp. Today, the program still exists, but it no longer inspires the same warmth or faith it did in Eisenhower's years, when a national policy truly gave people hope and security that lasted. 13. Elvis Presley, the earthquake of American youth. If suburban homes and highways were the images of family happiness, then Elvis Presley was the flame that set young souls ablaze. The 1950s witnessed a phenomenon today's youth can hardly imagine. With just a few guitar chords, slick hair, and a half-shy, half-daring smile, Elvis sent a generation into a frenzy like never before. He did not just sing, he made American teenagers feel, for the first time, that music belonged to them. In 1956, Elvis appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, and more than 60 million viewers, nearly 80% of all TV households tuned in. His hip-shaking performance of Hound Dog set off screams across the nation, while parents sat frowning in the background, bewildered and helpless. The new pocket transistor radios became the proof of this revolution. Teenagers carried Elvis everywhere, turning music into the pulse of daily life. One young fan wrote, "Elvis didn't just sing to us. He sang what we didn't dare say out loud. That was the difference." Elvis was the dawn of youth music before the Beatles, before disco, before the idea of the teen idol. In Eisenhower's America, his name meant freedom, rebellion, and the hunger to live fully. Young Americans in 2025 may have countless idols from pop stars to K-pop groups, but no one can recreate that first moment when one man stood with a guitar and made an entire generation believe their lives had just changed. The memory of Elvis remains proof of a time when American youth found themselves through music. 14. Lively towns, Main Street bustling with every convenience. Perhaps Main Street, the heart of small-town America, was never as vibrant and full of life as it was in the Eisenhower years. It was where everything came together. The ice cream parlor, open late with sundaes, for just 10 cents. The movie theater, displaying hand-painted posters of the latest film. The little bookstore selling freshly inked copies of Life magazine. And the corner store lined with candy jars and glass-bottled sodas. People did not need to drive far, because all the joy and convenience of life fit within a few blocks. Happiness showed itself when kids rode bikes to the ice cream shop after school, cones in hand. When young couples strolled under neon lights, stopping for popcorn before stepping into the theater to watch Elvis Presley sing on the big screen. When families walked slowly, ducked into the 5 and dime for small purchases, and ended the evening with a meal at the local diner. Main Street was not just a place of business, it was the beating heart of the community, where everyone felt they belonged. And now, walk through many once bustling main streets, and you'll see empty storefronts, faded signs, and windows covered in dust. Even shopping malls that once replaced main streets have begun to fade into dead malls, silent and hollow. The contrast brings back waves of memory. Once a single street was enough to hold joy, convenience, and connection. Now, in a world of online shopping, we have lost the soul that once defined everyday American happiness. 15. Television dinner, a meal on an aluminum tray. It may sound hard to believe, but one of the icons of 1950s convenience came in the form of a tiny aluminum tray. The TV dinner, a frozen meal that could be heated quickly, was launched by Swanson in 1953 and became an instant sensation. Americans loved the idea. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans, eaten right in front of a brand new black and white TV. For suburban families, it wasn't just dinner, It was a modern experience where technology and daily life came together. Frozen convenience meals are everywhere now, but that first feeling of eating with the screen belongs forever to Eisenhower's America. 16. Drive-in movies, watching films from the car. It may sound unbelievable to those born later, but there was a time when Americans thought watching movies from inside their cars was one of the most romantic and magical experiences of all. Imagine a summer night, car windows rolled down, a breeze carrying the scent of grass, a giant screen glowing in the distance, and a bag of warm popcorn in your hands. Your heart raced not only from the movie, but also from a secret handhold on a first date. It was never just watching a film. It was a rite of youth. During the 1950s, under Eisenhower, drive-ins exploded in popularity. From a few hundred in their early days, the number soared to more than 4,000 across the country within a decade. At night, rows of cars lined up neatly in wide fields, headlights turned off, the movie screen's light reflecting on windshields, creating an atmosphere no indoor theater could match. Families brought their own food, kids sat on the open trunk, adults leaned back to relax. For young couples, it was a private world, sweet and secret, where love quietly bloomed. This unique experience was possible only then, when cars had just become symbols of prosperity and movies still carried the wonder of new light. Though a few drive-ins still survive as heritage sites, the thrill of entire communities watching a film under the stars has vanished. Young people today may stream movies on their phones or visit modern theaters, but they will never know the powerful simplicity of sitting in a car among hundreds of others, laughing, crying, and dreaming together as a generation. 17. Sears Catalog, The Whole American Dream in One Book. It may sound crazy, but there was a time when all of America put its hopes and happiness into a single thick book. The Sears Catalog, just a black and white volume, looked like an entire world in the eyes of Eisenhower-era families. Inside were beds and sofas, clothes, washing machines, children's toys, even a do-it-yourself house. For families living in rural towns, the catalog was a window to the future. Picture it: a child circling a toy train with a red pencil, parents folding a corner of the page for a new sofa, and everyone waiting in excitement. When the knock finally came at the door, and the mailman handed over a Sears package, the joy burst open, as if the modern world itself had arrived on the porch. That kind of magic could only happen during Eisenhower's time, when faith in prosperity filled every household. Today, with just a few clicks, anything can arrive the same day, but nothing compares to the trembling thrill of opening a package the family had waited weeks to receive. The feeling that the entire American dream could fit in one book has vanished, and today's generation may never understand that simple happiness. 18. Hula hoop, when all of America spun together. Can you believe that a cheap plastic hoop once sent the whole country into a frenzy? In the late 1950s, the hula hoop arrived and instantly became a craze. From schoolyards and city parks to quiet suburban streets, everywhere you went, you could hear children's laughter as the hoop spun around their waists, arms, even necks. In just the first 2 years, more than 100 million hula hoops were sold. An unbelievable number that showed the nonsense yet pure charm of this toy. It was a one-of-a-kind moment when an entire nation shared the same simple joy. As time turned, children today are glued to phones, video games, and social media, while that innocent laughter on the street has faded away. A new generation may never understand the delight of spinning around, the joy of a happy America, where just a plastic hoop was enough to spark a nationwide craze. 19. Polio vaccine. The joy of watching a disease disappear. If one memory blended science and humanity in this era, it was the day millions of American children received the polio vaccine. Before then, polio spread fear through every neighborhood, paralyzing thousands of children each year. In 1955, when Jonas Salk's vaccine was announced, Eisenhower's administration launched a nationwide immunization campaign. Within just a few years, cases dropped dramatically, and American parents breathed a sigh of relief. The haunting images of leg braces, iron lungs, and crowded hospital wards faded into the past. The joy of an entire generation knowing their children were safe. That was a happiness only those 1950s families could truly feel. 20. Baseball, the weekend joy of the whole family. On weekend afternoons in the 1950s, Yankee Stadium or Ebbets Field shook with cheers. Fans packed the wooden bleachers, hot dogs steaming in their hands, sodas fizzing in cups, shouting the names of the Yankees or Dodgers. Baseball wasn't just a sport. It was America's national religion. Tickets were only a few dollars, so any working family could afford them. Parents brought kids, grandparents came along, and everyone shared in a simple, heartfelt world. It was an experience only possible in Eisenhower's time, when sports were still intimate and hadn't yet been smothered by heavy commercialization. Today, with games saturated in ads and tickets sky high, baseball has lost some of that closeness and warmth. We've just traveled through 25 special things found only in Eisenhower's America. 8 short years that left behind what many still call the nation's golden age. From white picket fences in the suburbs, to road trips down Route 66, to fireworks as bursting on the 4th of July, to the simple joy of a slogan that made people smile. All of it now lingers like a distant memory. So what about you? If you could step back into that decade, what would make you happiest? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue this journey together, uncovering the nostalgic pieces that made America shine so brightly in the past.